Marlene said she wasn't permitted to attend, but someone had taken her place at the back row, her personal assistant, a woman I'd seen a few times at family holidays. The judge was Mrs. Taylor, gray-haired, with eyes like February frost. When she spoke, the whole room held its breath. Her voice wasn't loud, but every word rang like a bell. "Mrs. Whitmore, you may begin." I stood, pen still in hand, but I didn't write. I didn't read my prepared notes. I spoke. Briefly, with enough detail about what Ellie had said, drawn and expressed. I presented photos of bruises, the audio with Ashley, and the security footage. Evidence even their lawyer didn't try to refute. Andrew stayed silent most of the morning, but when it was his attorney's turn to speak, the man stood, nodded at the judge, then turned to me, and opened with a line that almost made me laugh. "Miss Charlotte, you're an artist, correct? Your profession is imagination." I looked at him for a beat. "I'm a children's book editor," I said. "My job is to make sure every detail is accurate and grounded." "But you're not a psychologist. What makes you think you can interpret children's behavior and draw conclusions about abuse?" "I didn't make the conclusion," I answered. "I listened to my daughter. I documented what she said. Experts, teachers, the school counselor, they confirmed it. I just didn't ignore it." In that moment, the judge's eyes flickered. She gave the faintest nod. "Just once." Midway through the session, Marlene stood and requested to add testimony. Sylvia's assistant, her name was Lauren Miller, stepped forward holding a printout. None of us had expected it. Not even me. "I have internal emails between Mrs. Sylvia Richardson and the principal of Maplewood School, where Colin attended 2nd and 3rd grade," she said, eyes fixed on the judge. The emails documented 3 covered-up incidents. A girl pushed down the stairs. A boy hit over the head with a lunchbox. And a child locked in a bathroom for nearly 30 minutes. Each case shared one thing in common. Colin was involved, Sylvia donated, and the matter disappeared. I sat still, silent, but my hand squeezed the pen so tightly the tip cracked in 2. If you've ever stayed quiet because no one believed you, or been blamed simply for speaking the truth, leave a comment. Share this story if you believe someone needs to hear it. After the hearing, Judge Taylor issued an emergency order. Colin was to have no contact with Ellie under any circumstances. Supervised visitation would be handled by court-appointed staff, and Andrew was only permitted to see her in the presence of a social worker at the Family Resource Center. I didn't feel relief. What I felt was something sturdier, like a shield. That afternoon, I picked Ellie up from school. She ran out, backpack slipping off one shoulder, cheeks flushed pink from the cold. "Mom? Ms. Lane said my drawing got picked to hang in the school hallway," she said, eyes sparkling. "Which one?" "The deer one, the one you said was brave." I laughed. She said it felt like a silent speech. That night, while I was doing the dishes, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown address, but only had 3 words. "I'm ready." Attached was a photo of a journal page, the handwriting shaky but clear. "Mom says I can't tell the story in the darkroom. If I do, everyone will hate me." I didn't know who sent it, but I knew this wasn't just about Ellie anymore. I printed 3 copies of the photo, along with the original email and metadata Marlene had verified. No one knew the sender, but the content was hauntingly familiar. The wording, the way the child explained fear through silence. It resembled Ellie too closely, except this wasn't my daughter's writing. It belonged to another child who had lived through the same thing under the same roof. "This isn't a family matter anymore," Marlene said when I sent the copies to her office. "This is a pattern, and if we can prove systematic cover-ups, the court will have to expand the investigation." I nodded, though my chest felt heavier than ever. That evening, Ellie and I made pizza together. She arranged the pepperoni slices into a heart shape and added 3 olives in the center. "Do you think someone else got hurt by Colin too?" she asked, not looking up. "Maybe," I said softly. "And I think someone's beginning to speak up." Ellie nodded, as if she already knew. "I don't want anyone else to have to hide. It makes you feel small inside. I dried my hands and sat beside her. You're not small. Not even a little. After dinner, I reopened the blog I had created a month earlier, where I'd been posting short entries about our journey to protect Ellie. I never named names. Just feelings, details, and quiet moments most people wouldn't think twice about. I wrote about the first night Ellie slept without a nightlight. I shared about the art class where she drew a deer standing in the woods, but its eyes turned toward the light. I posted a new entry titled, "When Children Learn to Be Quiet Just to Be Loved." I only hoped a few readers would understand that truth doesn't always come in screams. Sometimes it hides inside unusually well-behaved children who've been quiet for far too long. 2 days later, the emails started pouring in. A woman in Connecticut wrote that her daughter had once been locked in a storage room for crying too much after losing a game. A father in Vermont said his son refused to visit the grandparents during holidays, but they all assumed he was just too sensitive. An elementary school teacher said she'd once filed a report after a student drew a picture just like Ellie's, but the matter was quickly handled internally. I read every line, every sentence, and saved them all. Marlene told me to start building a secondary file, not to bring to court, but to clarify one thing. This wasn't isolated, and I wasn't alone. A week later, I got a call from the Maine State Family Support Center. They invited me to join a parent feedback group, an internal advisory board helping to reform school safety and external supervision policies. I said yes without hesitation. The first meeting was held in a third-floor conference room with big windows overlooking the Fore River. On the table were bottled water, ginger cookies, and a blank whiteboard. The facilitator was a mom named Dana. Short hair, round glasses, hands resting gently on the table like she was holding something fragile. "I'm Charlotte," I said when it was my turn. "I'm here because my daughter was hurt by someone in our family, and for months, I was taught that if I spoke up, I'd destroy relationships. But my daughter doesn't need more relatives. She needs someone who will stand beside her." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then another parent nodded. Then another. A father across the table murmured, "I think we've all waited too long for someone to start talking." That night, when I shared it with Ellie, simply just enough, she didn't say much. She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a piece of paper folded into quarters. "Redraw that old picture," she said, "but this time, the deer walks out of the woods." I nodded, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Maybe add some hills in the distance?" I asked. "Sure. And I think it should walk toward the light." A simple student art show became the first place Ellie spoke in front of a crowd. The exhibition was held in Lincoln Elementary's library, a red brick building nestled among maple trees losing their golden leaves. Early that morning, 3rd and 4th graders had arrived, eager to set up paintings, clay sculptures, and little popsicle stick models. Ellie clutched my hand as we stepped into the hallway. Her drawing was hung at the center of the Change and Hope gallery wall, a reddish-brown deer stepping out of the woods, with a soft sun glowing in the distance. In the bottom right corner, written in felt-tip pen, "Sometimes the light doesn't find you. You have to walk out to it." I stood still, not because the picture was beautiful, but because the handwriting no longer trembled the way it once did. Her art teacher, Ms. Leona, came up beside me and whispered, "Ellie picked this spot herself. She said she wanted it where everyone walking by has to see it." I squeezed my daughter's shoulder. Ellie didn't say anything, but her eyes scanned the room, as if looking to see who truly stopped to look. While I stood near the cookie table, I spotted a familiar face in the crowd. Andrew. No sharp suit, just a khaki jacket, rushed hair, and a sleep-deprived face. I didn't walk away. I didn't walk toward him, either. I just stood there, waiting to see what he'd do. He looked around for a bit, then slowly approached, stopping an arm's length away. "That painting?" he started, voice lower than usual. "Ellie made it?" "Yes," I replied. He nodded. "She looks better than I expected." I turned to him. She doesn't need you to expect. She needs to be believed and left alone. Andrew exhaled, shoulders slumping slightly. I read your blog, he said. Not out of curiosity. I wanted to understand what I didn't see. I didn't write it for you, I replied. Not cold, but clear. I wrote it for the ones who were told they were too sensitive just for feeling hurt. He nodded, said nothing. A quiet moment settled between us. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, he said, but I won't let my mother speak for this family anymore. I didn't reply. I just looked at Ellie, who was showing a classmate the color she had mixed for the background, somewhere between turmeric yellow and earthy brown. So, it looks like sunlight touching the leaves. The following week, Sylvia sent me a handwritten letter. It wasn't an apology. Just a cream-colored page with neat cursive, saying she felt hurt by being misunderstood, that the media is twisting the truth about Colin, and at the end she wrote, either way, Ellie is always welcome back when she's ready. I filed the letter away. No response. One afternoon during Ellie's weekly therapy session with Dr. Hudson, the child psychologist she sees, she shared a new dream. I dreamed I walked out of a house with a tall fence, and then the fence disappeared, Ellie said. Mom was waiting outside. Then she held my hand and we walked. Were you scared when the fence disappeared? The doctor asked. No, I felt light. I turned away, pretending to study a picture on the wall. It was a cloud shaped like a heart. That night, after Ellie fell asleep, I sorted through her drawings by month. From thick black scribbles to open scenes with windows, roads, and light. At the same time, Marlene texted. The court had accepted the expanded file. Another family from Massachusetts agreed to give testimony. Same pattern, same child, Colin. It seemed the wall of silence was finally cracking. The hearing took place on a cold morning in late March, inside a small conference room at the Allegheny County Civil Courthouse. The room was lit by pale fluorescent lights with dark blue plastic chairs and 2 frosted glass doors that let me see people moving outside, though I couldn't hear them. I sat beside my attorney, Marlene. In front of us was a thick file, documents gathered from 4 different families, therapy notes, Ellie's drawings, and Dr. Hudson's latest report. I could feel the chill in my fingertips despite the heater humming nearby. Andrew sat across the table next to his own lawyer. He didn't look at me, but his hand was clenched on his knee, the same way mine does when I'm too exhausted to react. When the court representative invited me to speak, I didn't look at the papers. I looked toward the beige wall behind the judge, where a round clock ticked, painfully slow. I'm not here to destroy anyone, I said. I'm here to protect my daughter and the children who don't have someone to stand up for them. I recounted the night Ellie curled up at the sound of a knock, the story no one believed at first, until the press got involved and the evidence started to align like puzzle pieces. I didn't cry. My voice stayed steady, pausing only when I repeated the words Ellie had said in her dreams. She doesn't need anyone to apologize yet. She needs peace. She needs to wake up every day knowing the world won't flip upside down and tell her her feelings aren't real. Andrew didn't speak during the rest of the hearing. He simply stood and signed the court's agreement, recognizing that my temporary sole custody would become permanent. After the judge announced the ruling, I left the room without looking back. Marlene touched my elbow gently, just enough to steady me. In the hallway outside, I saw an elderly couple sitting on the waiting bench. The woman held a folder like it was fragile. The man kept stroking the back of her hand. I didn't know their story, but I knew the feeling of standing at the edge between truth and silence. That night, Ellie and I celebrated with a trip to the little ice cream shop near our home. It was cold, but she still chose strawberry. I just ordered a cup of ginger tea. Does that mean you don't have to talk to strangers tomorrow? Ellie asked, her mouth ringed with pink. For a long time, I think so. I don't hate Dad, but I like it here more. I nodded, saying nothing more. Ellie didn't need me to tell her how to feel. She just needed me to listen long enough to understand. The following weekend, I took Ellie to a spring break day camp on the west side of the city, a program designed for kids who've experienced emotional trauma. There, they learn to plant vegetables, write journals, and draw the things they can't say out loud. As I turned to leave, Ellie ran after me and called out, "Mom, don't forget to save the sunshine for me." I smiled, raising my hand like I was catching light from the gray sky. On the way home, I turned on the radio. A local station was replaying the investigative report that had aired over the past 2 weeks. My voice was mixed in, between expert interviews and other family stories. Not everyone agreed. There were harsh comments, anonymous messages. But there were also handwritten letters, long emails, from people who had once been Ellie or Charlotte in their own stories. A mother from Vermont wrote, "I stayed quiet for 17 years, but because of you, my daughter now knows I've believed her from day one." I printed that letter and taped it inside the kitchen cabinet. Every morning while making coffee, I read it again. Not for pride, but to remember where I'm headed. I didn't think a cup of tea on a chilly March night could make me feel whole, but sitting under the soft kitchen light, listening to the hum of the heater and Ellie's humming in the bathroom, I knew. Slowly, we were finding our way back to each other. That April passed like someone was tidying up my life, drawer by drawer, box by box, empty space by empty space, filled with things worth keeping. I cleaned out my home office. The desk corner, once buried in court documents, now held a small reading lamp and pots of lavender. The Vermont woman's letter still hung nearby, next to one of Ellie's paintings. 2 women standing in the rain, holding umbrellas. Their smiles faint but unmistakably surrounded by light. Marlene called me one Wednesday afternoon. "Congratulations," she said. "The state board passed the new policy this morning. Testimonies from Ellie's case are now official support documents." I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, looking out the window. The neighbor's apple tree was blooming, white, delicate, like small hands reaching out from winter. That night, Ellie drew another picture. This time it was a house on a hill, with a winding path leading up to it, the door open, and warm yellow light spilling onto the steps. "I'll draw it every year," Ellie said. "So our house always stays bright." I held her for a long time, said nothing. I didn't need to. At the end of the month, I posted a short message on a parenting forum. "If you're listening but unsure what to do, stay a little longer. Truth may not speak loudly, but it knows how to stay with those who are patient." I didn't expect much of a response. But day by day, messages came in from everywhere. People sharing things they had kept silent about for far too long. People thanking me for helping them feel less alone. An older woman from Nebraska wrote, "I was once Ellie. Then I became the mother of a child just like her. Thank you for not staying silent." I printed that message and taped it next to the old letter. Under it I wrote in pencil, "We are evidence for one another." In early June, Ellie finished the school year. During the end-of-year parent meeting, her teacher shared that she had joined the art group, no longer avoided story time, and sometimes even helped other kids speak up. After the meeting, Ellie walked me to the car, backpack too big for her frame. "I feel like I'm a tree with roots now," she said, eyes looking up at the early summer sky. I nodded, placing my hand gently on her head. "Yeah, and you're growing the right way." We drove home with the windows down, the wind threading through our hair, and an old song playing softly on the radio. That night, I let Ellie go to bed early and sat down to write a letter by hand. Not to anyone specific. I just wanted to leave something clear for another woman in another city, wondering whether to trust her child's voice. I can't tell you what's right, but I can say this. Listening is never wrong. I folded the letter and tucked it into the card box in the living room. Maybe, one day, I'll meet someone who needs it. Before bed, I reread a journal entry I had written nearly a year ago, the night I took Ellie to the hospital. The handwriting was rushed, shaky, like I was trying to trap a memory before it got torn away from me. I didn't erase it, I just added a line at the bottom. And then we went on living. Not forgetting, but no longer being consumed. I don't think anyone walks out of those months untouched, but I know we came out no longer alone. I don't know where you're listening from, in your car, before bedtime, or on a day when you needed a story to remind yourself to stand back up. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And if you'd like to hear more honest journeys like this one, don't forget to follow the channel, because the next story might be just what you need. Charlotte's story isn't just about seeking justice for her daughter. It's a powerful reminder of the strength found in trusting maternal instinct and speaking up. In real life, many people are forced into silence by fear, family pressure, or systemic failure. But as Charlotte has shown, perseverance, courage, and love can truly create change. No one should have to choose between truth and surface peace, because only truth brings lasting freedom. He answered firmly. I completely agree. I turned around just as loud knocking echoed through the door. Elaine stood on the porch, pale with fury. You don't have the right to treat us like this. We're the child's grandparents. Then act like real grandparents, I said, hand still on the door, my voice not rising a bit above what was necessary. No one has the right to leave an 8-year-old home alone just for spilling orange juice. Robert spoke up behind her. Don't blow this out of proportion, Ariana. You're overreacting. Would you like me to call the police? Because I have clear proof your actions meet the standard for child neglect. Elaine clenched her purse strap. For heaven's sake, she's fine. She needs to learn boundaries. You're being emotional. I couldn't hold it anymore. This isn't about emotion. It's about my daughter. She's not some temporary kid or the adopted one. She's my daughter, recognized by law, protected by my heart, and loved by Daniel as his own. Elaine scoffed. You think Daniel truly sees her as his daughter? You can ask him yourself. Right then, Daniel's car pulled up. He stepped out, coat unzipped, jaw tight with rage. Elaine opened her mouth, but Daniel raised his hand. Stop. Not one more word. Robert stepped forward, his voice pleading. Son, we're all tired. Today was just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Daniel stared directly into his eyes. Leaving her alone all day, making her scrub the floors like a maid, while taking Emma to a resort? That's a misunderstanding. Elaine still tried to argue. She needs discipline. That woman spoils her. Daniel practically growled. She is my daughter. My daughter. If you can't love her like you love Emma, then don't come around again. Robert stepped back, stunned. Elaine flushed, then went ghostly pale. I cut in, my voice cold and final. From now on, if you want to see Zoe, it has to be supervised by us. If you don't agree, this relationship ends here. Elaine snapped. You don't have the right to tear apart my family. Daniel stepped beside me, his voice hard as steel. Families don't tear themselves apart. People exclude themselves when they treat an innocent child unfairly. We stood there for a long second. Wind cut across the porch like ice. No one spoke. Finally, Robert lowered his head and quietly led his wife away. The door closed behind them. Daniel turned to me, his eyes red. I can't believe they did that to her. I placed a hand on his chest and whispered, She doesn't need anyone's belief. She needs protection. And today, we gave her exactly that. Daniel nodded, tears rising. You think she heard us? I looked up the stairs. Zoe sat quietly at the bottom step, eyes wide, clutching Mr. Pepper tight. I reached out my hand. She ran to me, burying her face in my chest. Did Daddy yell at Grandma? She asked, voice trembling. Daniel crouched down, wrapping his arms around us both. No yelling, I just made it clear. Anyone who can't treat you kindly doesn't get to be around you. Zoe whispered. I'm not an extra. Am I, Daddy? You're the best thing that ever happened to me. In the soft light, I saw something flicker in her eyes, a brightness no one would take from her again. 3 days after that confrontation, my phone started ringing with a strange, persistent rhythm. The names on the screen jumped from my aunt in Arizona to a cousin who writes happiness blogs, then even Uncle Edward, who only calls for weddings or funerals. They all started with the same voice. Soft, slightly confused, then quickly tinged with blame. Ariana, we're family. Can't we just talk about this calmly? Zoe's healthy, isn't she? Why blow this out of proportion? You're creating unnecessary drama. Eleanor and Robert just handled things poorly. Poorly? I wanted to scream. Leaving an 8-year-old home alone isn't poor handling, it's dangerous. But I didn't scream. I just hit block, one number at a time. Daniel sat beside me in silence, deleting messages from relatives on his phone too. One even sent an old video of Emma hugging Zoe with the caption, "See? They do love her." Some people would rather deny the truth than let go of something they call tradition. Saturday night, while I was reading with Zoe, the phone rang again. The screen showed Matthew, Daniel's younger brother. I hesitated. Daniel nodded. "Pick it up. This might be different," I answered. Matt's voice was noticeably lower. "Hey, I'm sorry for calling this late, but Lily keeps asking. She's really sad. She doesn't understand what's going on. Every time Zoe's name comes up, she gets teary-eyed." I froze. Has Lily heard anything from Eleanor? She has. Mom told her Zoe doesn't know how to behave, so she's not allowed to play with her anymore. Said she always throws tantrums and that you two are tearing the family apart over a small mistake. But Lily told me Mom never let Zoe pick the movie. Never let her eat the food she liked. I looked at Daniel, then replied slowly. "What do you think?" "I think Mom was wrong, clearly." This was serious. Lily told me Zoe was once made to wash the dishes all alone, while everyone else was out on the porch eating ice cream. I didn't think much of it back then, but now, it's clear. The cousins were always compared, but only one had to bow her head. Only one was taught to know her place. "I want to help," Matt continued, "at least so Lily doesn't lose the one friend she truly connects with." I bit my lip and sat down next to Daniel. "Can you help Zoe and Lily stay in touch? Letters, cards, maybe video calls, while things settle?" "I can handle that. And I'll talk to the rest of the family. If they want to believe my parents, let them. But I'll speak the truth." That night, Lily sent Zoe a drawing. 2 girls sitting under a pink tree, sharing strawberry ice cream. Underneath was a scribbled line. "I miss you, Zoe. We're best friends, not blood." Zoe didn't say a word. She just picked up a pencil and darkened the sky in the picture. Her eyes looked clearer, like they had just shed a thin layer of dust. The next morning, Matt sent Daniel an email, 3 pages long, listing all the signs of favoritism he had witnessed: birthdays, Thanksgivings, family meals, outings. He wrote, "We used to overlook these little things. Now it's obvious. They pile up into scars." Daniel printed it out and added it to our therapy file. Our counselor said sometimes proving bias isn't about assigning blame. It's about validating what a child feels. But not everyone in the family wanted to hear that truth. One of Daniel's cousins posted on social media, "Family means forgiveness. Children shouldn't be used as emotional weapons." The post had nearly 40 comments, most defending Eleanor. We didn't respond. We didn't need to defend ourselves while protecting our daughter from empty, toxic ties. Matt stayed the bridge, helping the girls keep their friendship alive. He even hosted a video call with his wife present to ensure safety. During that call, Zoe said to Lily for the first time, "I'm okay. I have Mom and Dad. I'm not an outsider." Lily nodded, her eyes shimmering. I know. We're the same. It's just the grown-ups who don't get it yet. No one told Lily to say that. No one had to. Some truths kids just seem to grasp faster than adults. The family may deny, justify, or try to win public favor, but what matters to me now isn't the Westwood reputation. It's the self-worth of a child who once thought she was unloved for not having the right last name. I sat on the porch watching Zoe scribble in her notebook. Each letter she wrote was a step further from the shadow adults once cast on her. Not blood, but love. That's what will keep her standing, no matter who forgets how to be human. We started seeing a family counseling center in the east part of the city. The walls were painted a soft pastel blue, with overhead lights that glowed like a late summer sunset. The intake specialist was Dr. Lorraine Carter, a psychologist who worked with adopted children and those facing internal family bias. Zoe sat on a small sofa, her legs dangling. She clutched Mr. Pepper. Dr. Lorraine didn't rush to ask anything. Instead, she offered watercolor paints, drawing paper, a few pre-sharpened colored pencils, and gently said, "You can draw anything that helps you feel safe." Zoe hesitated, then started to paint. I sat quietly beside her, observing. The first painting was nothing but blocks of gray and brown, sharp lines framing a house with no door. By the third session, Zoe drew a room. 3 people. A long-haired woman, a tall man, and a little girl standing outside the window with no face. "Who's the girl outside, Zoe?" Dr. Lorraine asked. Zoe whispered, like she was reading aloud to herself. "That's me. I thought they didn't really see me." I turned away, my throat dry. By the 5th session, after many rounds of emotional flashcards, Zoe began to share more. She said Eleanor once whispered in her ear, "Being here is a privilege. Don't do anything to make people regret it." She recalled how Emma was always called our little Westwood princess, while she was just a good girl. For now. That's when I understood why she lowered her head whenever someone mentioned the Westwood name. It wasn't respect, it was fear. She didn't belong. Lorraine said, "When a child is quietly treated differently over time, they start asking questions they never should. What's wrong with me? They blame themselves." Daniel sat beside me, gripping the arm of the chair. I never realized how much she was carrying. I didn't see. But now you do. And that's what matters, I said, placing my hand on his shoulder. We began to change. Not through long-winded apologies, but through action. Every Saturday morning, the 3 of us made breakfast together. Zoe picked the meal, Daniel did the cooking, I handled the table setting. We named it Real Family Breakfast. Every last weekend of the month, we have an origin story day, a time when each of us shares something about how we came into this family. Daniel talks about the first time he met me. I talk about the first time I heard Zoe sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in her soft, lisping voice. And Zoe tells the story of choosing her second name, Blake, after my mother's last name. The woman she now calls her angel, Grandma. I've put up family photos all around the house. Zoe sitting on Daniel's lap while they make Halloween lanterns. Zoe grinning as I take her to the bakery on her official adoption anniversary. No more stiff wedding portraits of adults Zoe barely knows. Those used to make her feel like a misplaced accessory. Daniel writes handwritten notes for Zoe, tucked under her pillow every Monday morning. Each letter includes one thing she did well, one thing he loves about her, and one thing she can teach grown-ups. During one therapy session, Lorraine asked Zoe, "Have you ever felt like you didn't deserve to be part of this family?" Zoe nodded. "I used to think that, but now I think if it wasn't me, Mom would be really sad, and Dad wouldn't have someone to teach him how to tie a bow tie." Lorraine smiled. "So you feel important?" "Yes, more important than papers." I looked over at Daniel. His eyes were glassy with tears. One night, after Zoe had fallen asleep, I sat on her bedroom floor, looking around at her sketches taped to the walls, the balloon-shaped nightlight, and a tiny note she had written. Family is who hugs you when you're not okay. I thought of Eleanor, who once said my daughter should be thankful for being let in. I thought of Robert, who compared Zoe's dry sandwich to Emma's full, custom-picked dinner. But I wasn't angry anymore. They weren't shadows in my mind anymore. They were just background noise. Because at the center of everything, Zoe was rewriting what love means. Not with blood, but in the way a mother looks at her child when they fall. In the way a father lifts them up to reach candy on the highest shelf. In the sound of laughter when all three of us go sledding on fake snow in our garage because real snow is too far away. One afternoon, when I picked Zoe up from her art class, she handed me a hand-drawn card. On the front, a picture of 3 people. Me, Daniel, and Zoe. Inside, in crooked print, it said, "I wasn't born from you, but I was chosen by you. I don't carry Daddy's blood, but his love grows my heart every day. So, whose child am I?" I held the card tightly, pulled her into my arms. There was no need to answer. She already knew. 6 months had passed since Zoe was left alone, kneeling on a cold kitchen floor like an outsider in the home she thought she belonged to. The initial fury had calmed. What remained was clarity, and a boundary that would not be blurred again. We agreed to let Eleanor and Robert see Zoe again, but every meeting had to include either me or Daniel. No solo visits, no unchecked gifts. The focus wasn't on merit or bloodlines. It was about Zoe, her feelings, her needs, and her limits. The first meeting happened at a small cafe downtown. Soft yellow lights, a secluded corner table. Eleanor arrived first, wearing a cream sweater and holding a weathered leather notebook. Robert sat silently beside her. Zoe walked in, clutching my pinky. When she saw her grandmother, she froze. I bent down and whispered, "You don't have to say anything, just listen, if you want to." Eleanor stood up. Her usual superiority was gone. She looked at Zoe for a long moment and said, without hedging, "I was wrong. Deeply and cruelly wrong. I had no excuse to hurt you like that. Not because you don't share our blood, not because your name is different. Only because I believed things I should have let go a long time ago." Zoe said nothing, but the fear in her eyes softened. Robert added, "We're learning. We don't expect forgiveness yet, but we hope to be allowed to see you grow up without having to hide." Daniel nodded. "Respect starts with keeping promises. If we see even one sign of backsliding, no matter how small, the connection ends." I added, "Zoe doesn't need more lessons in forgiveness. She needs safety." Eleanor was quiet. Then she nodded. In the following months, visits were shortened, just 1 hour each in public spaces. Eleanor started seeing a personal therapist, as Lorraine recommended. She didn't talk much about it, but the way she listened to Zoe began to change. Zoe didn't hug her right away, but after the 5th visit, she handed Eleanor a cup of cocoa without me prompting her. A small gesture, but enough to show the healing had begun. I'm not hoping for some magical closeness. I just want the adults to understand. Love is not a privilege. It's not a bargain chip tied to genetics. Meanwhile, Zoe and Lily's friendship bloomed through video calls. They started a shared journal project. Each kept an identical notebook, drawing something from the week and emailing the pictures to each other. One day, I overheard Zoe reading poetry to Lily. Her voice steady and sure, not timid anymore. Lily said she'll speak up next time grown-ups say something wrong, Zoe told me as we folded laundry. What do you think about that? I think Lily's brave. I used to stay quiet. I gently smoothed her shirt sleeve and said softly, "You weren't quiet. You were surviving. But now you're standing tall." Daniel poked his head into the room, handing me an envelope. Letter from Eleanor. I opened it. Handwritten, slanted letters. I read a book about becoming a grandmother to an adopted child. One part said, Don't look for where the child belongs to you. Ask, who can I become in their life? I never asked that. Now I'm starting to. I set the letter down, watching Zoe draw 3 people sledding, each wearing matching coats. No one left out. There are things that can't be erased. But we can learn to move forward without carrying bitterness. In the spring, we had a small picnic at Forest Park. No fancy cake, no balloons with family names. Just home-cooked food, a few blankets, and shared laughter. Eleanor showed up with a basket of sandwiches, none labeled for anyone. Robert helped set up a shade umbrella. Zoe and Lily played jump rope near the brick pathway. I watched my daughter laugh without needing to look over my shoulder. Family isn't measured by blood, but by who stays after the hurt. Who stays quiet and listens when someone says, "I'm hurting." Who chooses to change, not because they're forced to, but because they want to do what's right. In life, there are losses we can't undo. But there are also people, though once in the wrong, who can learn not to repeat their mistakes. Zoe curled into my lap, resting her head on my shoulder, her voice soft like wind through leaves. Mom, if I have a child one day, I'll tell them about you. That you didn't give birth to me, but you chose me. Really hard. I held her tight, saying nothing. I didn't need to, because in that moment, I didn't need to be affirmed as her mother. I was simply being one, every day. Ariana's story shows that love doesn't require shared blood to build a family. When adults can't see a child's worth just because they don't carry the right last name, it's a mother's protective, steady, and wholehearted actions that redefine what family truly means. In a world still thick with judgment, Ariana chose to stand by her child, not through blood, but through heart. The clearest lesson: sometimes blood ties mean nothing compared to someone who stays and loves you the right way. What do you think about Ariana's choice? Would you be strong enough to draw that line like she did? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, emotional stories about family and life.